Send them bastards back. I'm sure that paperwork comes in Spanish.
Ignorance and immigrants, they mix together. Woo! Woo!
If you don't speak English and don't contribute, get out.
I feel he's the last chance we have to establish law and order and preserve the culture I grew up in.
So far we're doing well, though, right? Have I been a good messenger? This is a movement like people have never seen before.
Welcome everyone, my name is Owen Zoll, and this is what I'm calling Finger on the Pulse, a project for CMCI 1010, where I try to shed some light on modern political happenings. You just heard selections from a New York Times video piece called Voices from Donald Trump's Rallies Uncensored. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that 2016 has been an utterly crazy year for American politics. This all culminated about 2 weeks ago when Donald Trump won the presidency, something that surprised a ton of political analysts all over the country. The Trump campaign drew heavy criticism from many about the amount of hatred it was allegedly producing around the country. These epithets were heard at many Trump rallies, from Maine to North Carolina, from Ohio to Arizona, as the New York Times piece said. The objective of my podcast is to try and shed some light on why these people are lashing out against marginalized groups. I strongly believe that it is important to understand the motives behind these people's words if there is any hope in promoting respect and fair discourse in this country. I went to Professor Jennifer Fitzgerald, an associate professor of political science here at CU Boulder, for some answers. Professor Fitzgerald has done research on hate groups in European politics and was very helpful in trying to define what this group stood for.
Isms are tough, and one of the main problems, especially as it's happening, is trying to define it, just like you're saying. Like, which ism do we have here? I would say that what unite the American case right now, if there's a new ism, and the European case, I struggle with nationalism because I think there's an odd fit across the continents. Nativism, possibly, but I think that's just a smaller fragment of it. You mentioned populism, and I actually think that's more of what we're looking at. Maybe there's a hybrid here. But populism, the whole idea is that a populist movement would be one that appeals to people on the basis of them feeling left out as average people. So to the extent that there's a very clear other or target of their frustrations, it's the elite, it's the insiders, it's the within the Beltway crowd, and then it's just everyone else feeling left out. That to me is a nice frame because it can then include lots of different frustrations. You could imagine a nativist frame that says, okay, I'm just this regular guy. The elites are really sticking it to me because they're giving people from other countries better advantages than I have. Or there's something unfair about the way I'm being treated because I'm just one of the regular guys. So it gives you a nice menu of frustrations and one really clear target of your frustrations. And that can encompass a whole host of broader sort of things that are making people mad. To me, I think populisms are really appropriate if maybe too vague of a term. It's not specific enough, but to me, it's
a good general descriptor.
I think so. I think it works, and it unifies the two sides because it's general enough that you can say this applies to what's happening right now in the United States, and it also applies to what's happening in, I would say, most European countries.
These comments really resonated with me. I think that these people are at the core populists. Of course, depending on the person, there can be any number of ideologies mixed in with that populism, but Trump's most vocal supporters all seem to have a populist side of their politics. I spoke with Christopher Cole, the president of the CU College Republicans, about his ideology, and Fitzgerald's words certainly rang true. Mr. Cole did not seem too vocal about minorities. Instead, he talked about how he and people like him weren't being paid attention to in the political world. Here is that clip. Apologies for the less than perfect audio quality.
This is, I think, a problem with the media and Trump support, just in that they caricaturize what it means to be small town or even maybe not even small town, but just kind of blue collar in a way that's not necessarily inner city. So I'm thinking of, miners or farmers or things like that, and even factory workers or just things that are more blue collar that I think Trump pulls a lot of his support from. And I really think that the media caricaturizes that, and it's really a shame.
So Mr. Cole kind of reflected Professor Fitzgerald's idea that a lot of these Trump supporters simply feel left out, and whether that's for ethnic and racial reasons or for cultural and societal reasons, it's something that many of Trump's supporters seem to share. But what about the people who do believe that their race or ethnicity is being threatened? These people could be described as ethnic nationalists, that is to say, they believe in the foundation of a country being built around common physical traits, like skin color or culture. However, Professor Fitzgerald argued against that label when I mentioned it.
A lot of scholars would in fact say that we don't have a nationalism, that the U.S. is such a civically oriented country. This is a situation which, yes, if there is sort of an understanding, there's some great work that's been done on this, if there is an understanding that Americans, for the most part, just have to love the flag, think the founders were onto something, supporting the institutions, feeling proud of the institutions and supportive of the institutions of a liberal democracy, that is oftentimes what we think of as being an American. But not everyone agrees, right? Not everyone in any nationalist community would all agree on what makes you a group. Certainly there are some people in the U.S. who would say that no, in fact, you kind of need to be Christian, or you need to be white. I'm not even sure that's ethnic nationalism. To me, there's something about that that is maybe just more deeply exclusionary, but without the understanding of what actually binds you together. It's more othering in my mind.
With that in mind, it's the tiniest bit easier to understand Trump supporters and where they're coming from. A lot of them are just disillusioned with what our politics looks like today. Populism is a pretty wide-open label, and a lot of these populists are more blue-collar believers of limited government than seething racists. But the more vitriolic side of Trump supporters still defies a definition. A lot of what they stand for isn't necessarily based on any kind of political idea. Instead, it's based on fear. A fear that your group is being attacked by the outside world. Professor Fitzgerald called it othering, and I can't think of a better word for it. We've seen this as hate crimes have spiked since Trump's election. There may not be an easy way for us all to get through the next 4 years in the same country, but it's important to never stop trying to understand the other side. Thanks for listening. This has been Owen Zoll for Finger on the Pulse. Goodbye.